Hi, everyone, and hello, Danielle.
Hi.
So great to be up here with you.
Glad to be here.
So we heard your title. We heard you work for Ferrero. Tell us a little bit about your role and what Ferrero stands for.
Sure. So first of all, when I tell people that I work at Ferrero, they're always saying, oh, like Ferrero Rocher, which, yes, that is one of our amazing brands, but not the only brand in our portfolio. Ferrero is actually the third largest global confectionery company and the fastest growing in North America. We've got iconic global brands such as Nutella, Ferrero Rocher, the Kinder portfolio, and Tic Tac. And through acquisitions, we also now represent amazing, iconic American brands like Butterfinger, Baby Ruth, 100 Grand, Keebler, and Famous Amos. So across lots of different categories. Yeah, 100 Grand. A lot of people love that. I know. Sleeper brand. Don't sleep on that one. Halloween's coming up, by the way. Get your Ferrero candy. That's my plug. It's our Super Bowl. So yeah, I get to work across an amazing portfolio of brands. As I said, we're the fastest growing. I started at the beginning of the year, so I'm about 10 months in. My role is SVP of Media and Marketing Services. So I directly oversee the paid media team, as well as our business intelligence and consumer insights group. But really, my role is about creating those deeper consumer connections through better cross-functional ways of working and driving our digital transformation.
Amazing. So retail media, obviously going to be a very hot topic this week, as it has been over the last few months and years. But tell us about what retail media means to you. How do you define it yourself and at Ferrero?
Yeah, I love that question because I'm sure if I asked 20 people in this room what retail media meant, I would probably get 20 different answers. So it's great because there's no wrong answer for me to reply. But when I started at Ferrero, I found that we were using words like e-commerce and retail media interchangeably, and sometimes they were meaning different things. So it was really important for us to have a common definition and a common language of what they meant if we were going to then start to build a strategy around it and think about transformative growth. So the way that we like to think about it is retail media is any media dollars that are going towards a customer partner. And e-commerce is any media dollars that are going towards driving a digital sale. Now, if you think about that as like a Venn diagram, imagine it in your mind, the place in the middle where they intersect is what most people would today call retail media. It's your on-site search, your on-site display, maybe your off-site DSP inventory, but it's really more performance-driven, and it's not only intended to drive that customer relationship, but it's also generally driving an online sale and measured in online ROAS. Now, if we start to pull that lens out a little bit and think about all the offerings that retailers are now providing, whether it's, you can run media from their social handles, you can run video, right? Amazon Prime or Twitch. You can use their data and overlay that within your programmatic buys or even your video buys. All of that is still supporting that customer relationship, but it's not the same purpose or job to be done as, say, on-site search. And then on the other side, I know we're mostly talking about retail media networks today, but as we think about e-commerce, there's a lot of tactics that you can employ. Maybe it's QR codes, digital coupons, Micmac landing pages that can help to drive your digital sales, but those dollars aren't necessarily supporting a specific retailer. So that's like the whole ecosystem. And once we had that common language, it became a lot easier to say, okay, what are we talking about? Are we talking about core e-commerce? Are we talking about the whole expanded universe of retail media? And it just made those conversations and strategies a lot easier to define.
It's really helpful to have that very specific description because I agree with you. Everybody has their own definition, and I think that's really helpful for many in the industry. So tell us a little bit about how you've then changed the way you work with your partners, with retail media networks. How do you and your team challenge and help those retail media networks evolve? What's your relationship like with them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a CPG, retailers or our customers are the lifeblood of our business because if we want to get our products in front of our consumers, we have to partner with retailers. So it starts with that core. We do the always-on search, we run display campaigns, but it's then starting to test those other opportunities, starting to test data, starting to test how we can use video, starting to think about how we bring their capabilities further upstream. Because the reality is, and this, I mean, I'm sure you all know this as well as I do. Like, today's landscape is highly digitized, highly fragmented. It's harder and harder to reach your customers, your consumers. It's harder and harder to understand that consumer journey. And retailers are sitting on this real wealth of data in the fact that they understand not only consumer behaviors, but actual shopper journeys and purchase patterns. So how do we use that to not only inform down funnel, but actually inform what we do within our brand media as well?
Yeah, no, that's great. I love how the intention and the ambition of advertisers and retailers in this environment is so integrated, that you're hoping to do the same thing, which makes partnership, I think, a little bit unique in an interesting way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're trying to grow their business by having new offerings. We're trying to grow our business by reaching people and making them aware of our brands and then ultimately go to purchase. And so there's great synergies there.
Yeah, and it's such a new dawn to be able to really understand the end-to-end journey of the consumer. And we were talking a little bit in preparation about how the customer journey has evolved. How do you think about retail media networks within a holistic customer journey? And then specifically, how does that play into the rest of your media? And when you think about things like incrementality and the growth of performance overall, how do those things come together?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, there's obviously digital pure plays like an Amazon, right? But the wide array of retailers that we work with, many of them still have a big brick and mortar business. And we are still also, doing a large majority of our sales in brick and mortar stores. So I think what's been really interesting for us is to start to think about, as I said, that expanded lens, not just retail media as driving online sales, but what is the role that retail media plays in driving total sales? And you mentioned incrementality or measurement, but what we've found in working with our retail partners to really start to measure the ROAS, both in-store and online, is there's certain tactics that do really well for driving an online sale, like search, right? You're capturing that demand and putting that product right in front of them. But there are other things like paid social or video that actually can contribute to driving in-store sales. So we're starting to understand not only what the wide array of options are for media, but also what that contributes to our business.
It reminds me, we were talking about this, of the complexity of the early days of programmatic, for example, where there's so much fragmentation, and being able to stitch together a customer journey, even in one platform, is difficult. How do you do it across different networks?
Yeah, I mean, candidly, I think that's the challenge that we're still trying to figure out, right? So we live in a world of multiple walled gardens. The benefit of a retail media network is you can start to connect what the upper funnel media contributes to the downstream sales, whether it's in-store or online. But that's only one piece. Most brands, like the Ferrero portfolio, we work with multiple retailers. So you have to start to think about, what is my plan for each retailer, and how does that pair up with my national media? And those are the strategies that we're starting to build and starting to figure out, what is the job to be done? What is the role that a retail media network plays? What is the role that my national media plays? What messages do we want to say to our consumers in national media? What messages do we want to say within a retail environment? And I don't think any of us have fully cracked the code, but as we can start to understand how those pieces all play together, we can drive business results.
What's been most impactful when it comes to measurement then for you? Because obviously that's such a big factor. And for brands, CPG brands that have historically not had plenty of data at their fingertips to measure, you're now in that environment where you can do so, and do so more holistically. And even further into that, how do then consumer trends and behaviors play into the way that you're looking at the end-to-end journey and how you're measuring impact?
Yeah, I mean, measurement is, as you said, obviously a journey. I mean, retail media networks are evolving so fast, and measurement on retail media networks are evolving equally quickly. I think it's about that journey and that evolution. As I said, a couple of years ago at Ferrero, we were really only looking at online return on ad spend. So what was driving those digital sales? We've now started to evolve and not just think about digital sales, which were really just attribution, but starting to look at the full picture. So starting to understand the attribution of our media on online and offline sales. I think the next horizon is incrementality, because it's great if we could say the media that we ran attributed to or contributed to this sale. But what I really want to understand is what were the sales that we garnered that we wouldn't have otherwise gotten if we hadn't run that media? Right. Because I believe once we understand that incrementality, then that starts to open up the gates for more investment.
And has that changed the expectation of the talent in CPG brands from your perspective, the ability to do more with more data as the ecosystem has evolved?
Well, what I think it really requires is a lot of cross-functional collaboration. You know, I like to say that within our organization, we've got different teams that are focused on different things. Our brand marketers are very focused on making sure that we're growing the penetration of our brands and we're driving the awareness of our brands and the consideration of our brands and ultimately the sales, but really about that penetration. We've got trade marketers who are very focused on the relationships with the customers and how each customer is performing. We've got shopper marketing teams that are really focused on the point of purchase and how do you influence the shopper at that point of purchase. And then we have our e-commerce team that's really trying to drive those online sales. But if you think about the role that retail media plays, it hits every single one of those teams. Yeah. So this is a question that a lot of CPG organizations are wrestling with, like, where do I put retail media? Where does it sit? And for us, it's really about cross-functional collaboration. You know, my media team helping to bridge that gap and figuring out the places where retail media is going to serve all of our interests.
Yeah, I completely agree. It puts a lot more pressure on the media team. In an agency perspective, you know, we've gone from having this really specialized small group that is the one brain trust for things like retail media. Now the expectation of our clients, like yourselves, is that all of our strategists, all of our client leaders are expected to understand and know how retail media fits into the mix. And I think it's a great challenge, but it's certainly been a journey.
Well, and I can imagine from an agency perspective, I mean, I come from a long background of agency life turned client. I mean, it's also, if I go back to my earlier point about you're not going to measure a Prime Video campaign the same way against the same ROAS that you're going to measure an Amazon search campaign. They're intended to do different things. So at the same time, if the retail media team is responsible for all of those different aspects of the business, you can't expect them to have the same expertise in video or in social that they do in paid search or in programmatic. So it is about trying to figure out like where you bring the expertise in, but how do you also manage the whole portfolio? Because at the end of the day, all those dollars are going to Amazon or all those dollars are going to Walmart.
Right. It makes the challenge very broad and makes the learning agenda very, very steep, the learning curve very steep for our agency teams and our brand teams, of course. So you talked about how many of the more advanced media networks like Amazon, of course, have such a wide range of offering on their platforms. How do you think about the more nascent or newer retail media networks? They're popping up everywhere. You know, everyone is creating a new retail media network, let alone the commerce networks that are nipping at their heels. How do you judge the likely performance of a new network? What goes into your decision making when you're looking at new partners?
Yeah, it's a great question because like you said, it feels like every single day there's some other announcement in the trades of someone else who's coming out with a retail media network. And I think there is a place for all of them, but it is about that maturity curve, right? There are very advanced retail media networks and there are very nascent retail media networks. And we're actually partnering with our agency team at iProspect to map that out and kind of understand what that maturity curve looks like. And I think there's a place for all retail media networks in the plan, but it's managing expectations to what the retail media network can deliver. We're not going to spend the same amount on a nascent network that we're going to spend on a very large network. And it's also monitoring the performance as these new networks are coming available. It's testing them, seeing how they perform, and figuring out then if there's opportunities to scale.
I don't know if we have any nascent retail media networks in the audience, but is there kind of silver bullet? Like, if only these small up-and-coming networks had this one thing, it would really pique my interest.
I don't know if it's one thing. I think it's just, again, being realistic about what you expect from a brand when you're starting out on a network, and then just being really focused on performance. Because from my perspective, it's no longer pay to play, it's pay to perform. And we're going to put our dollars in the places where we're seeing those returns. And that's really where we're focused.
I love it. I would love to take some questions from the audience for Danielle. Yeah. I'll repeat the question. The question was around measurement and incrementality and how you think about working across the walled gardens that exist in the industry.
Yeah, so on the incrementality piece, I mean, for us, MMM is still the gold standard, and we have started to incorporate retail media into our MMMs. Of course, that's not great for real-time optimization or even near-term optimization. I mean, MMM is a great look back at how things performed and informing the strategy ahead, but we're still only getting them at an infrequent basis. So today, it's working with the retail media networks and using their homegrown solutions. They are starting to offer a lot more incrementality measurement and modeling. And, we make sure that, because I oversee both media and our business intelligence teams, bringing the business intelligence team in to try to vet the methodology to see if we can make it akin to what we do in MMM. And I think that's a good start. But we haven't necessarily gotten to a point where we can really do something more quickly that is also showing us the incrementality. And then in terms of the walled gardens, I mean, through DSPs, we have some opportunity to start to bridge those gaps, right? If you can apply, say, a Walmart data within Trade Desk and then, manage reach and frequency against other buys, that's something that we're starting to look at and explore. But there's always going to be walled gardens. There's always going to be some gaps that we can't fill in right now.
That's great. Thank you so much, Danielle. I know it is your Super Bowl coming up, October 31st. As she said, make sure you get your Ferrero bags at the ready. I will be picking all the Butterfinger out of my kids' baskets before they go to bed or when they're sleeping for the morning. Do you have your costume yet?
Still working on it, but I do love Halloween, so it's real great that I work at a candy company because it's my favorite holiday.
It's perfect.
So haven't figured that out yet. I have a few things in my Amazon cart, actually, that I'm thinking about. I have a 3-year-old, so he might change his mind 17 times before Halloween. We might have multiple costumes. We gotta figure that out.
Thank goodness for Prime. All right. Thank you so much.